So, high US tariffs on Chinese goods were blamed for hurting China's economy. But, it turns out that's not the full
Yep.
picture.
Wait, so experts initially thought that these tariffs were crippling China?
Exactly. The narrative was that the massive tariffs were causing severe damage because the US was the biggest single trading partner imposing these tariffs.
Mm-hmm. And China wasn't just sitting back, right? They actually retaliated with tariffs on American products.
Right, they did. But here's the twist. The retaliatory tariffs were set at lower rates than what the US was enforcing.
Yeah. So was it more damaging for the US then?
Well, not exactly on the overall economic scale. While top officials and economists worried about China's suffering thanks to the collapse of US trade, more detailed analysis shows things got quite mixed.
Uh huh. Mixed how?
For one, US supply chain managers actually started stockpiling Chinese goods, expecting that eventually these tariffs might be eased.
Right. So instead of a sudden breakdown in supply, it was more like a strategic delay where businesses bought in bulk?
Exactly right. That stocking up meant that the negative effects were somewhat mitigated on the American side.
Mm-hmm. But I gather the impact on US exports was another story?
Absolutely. China's tariffs on American energy and farm products actually caused a severe blow to US commodity exports.
Indeed. So, were American farmers and energy sectors hit pretty hard compared to other industries?
Yes, very much so. When China imposed tariffs on those specific products, it demolished US exports in those sectors.
Right. That seems a bit counterintuitive to what people thought originally, huh?
Exactly, and that's where the whole narrative gets flipped. Initially, the assumption was that China's economy was the one in trouble because of lost business with the US, but the data suggests otherwise.
So China, instead of collapsing from the tariffs, managed to find alternatives?
Right on. Over the past decade, China has really diversified its trade partners. It's been shifting focus from the US to other regions like ASEAN countries, South America, the EU, and Africa.
Yep. That's interesting. So their economic resilience is partly due to this diversification strategy?
Totally, yeah. Trade with those blocs has grown significantly and ended up being much more important to China's overall economic strength than its trade with the US ever was.
Mm-hmm. It's like they were hedging their bets, spreading risk across a wider market instead of relying almost solely on the US market, right?
Absolutely. It's like having multiple income streams. Sure, the US was a big piece of the pie, but losing that slice wasn't a death blow because the rest of the market was booming.
Right. But, isn't it possible that some experts may have underestimated how quickly diversification takes effect?
Yes, exactly. And that's where I think the experts had it a bit backwards. They assumed that the collapse of trade with the US would cripple China's economy, but in reality, changes in global trade flows had already set China up to pivot to other partners.
Yeah, I see that. So essentially, while tariffs did have their effects, particularly on US exports in energy and agriculture, China's proactive efforts in diversifying their trading relationships offset a lot of that pressure.
Exactly. And it's also interesting to note that even though the US sought to inflict economic damage on China, their own supply chain benefited, at least partially, from anticipating a softening of the trade war.
That is a neat twist. The very tools meant to pressure an economy ended up creating unexpected buffers on the other side.
Precisely. And it shows how interlinked our global economic systems are. Tariffs don't operate in a vacuum. There are always countermeasures and strategies in place, like the stocking of goods by US supply chain managers.
Right. Do you think this tells us something broader about how economic policy should account for these kind of counterintuitive reactions?
Yeah, definitely. It suggests that simple cause and effect reasoning might not hold true in complex global trade networks. Policies need to consider behavioral responses and second order effects, like how companies might hoard inventory rather than simply curtailing trade.
And obviously, if one side underestimates these ripple effects, the strategies could backfire.
Exactly. I mean, it's a wake up call for experts to review their assumptions. There's also a lesson here about over reliance on a single market and the importance of building resilience through diversification.
Absolutely. I have to wonder though, do you think any of this was like intentionally designed? Or was it just the natural evolution of global trade?
It's likely more of an organic shift. Countries and companies are always adapting to challenges. China's pivot wasn't necessarily planned as a response to the tariffs alone, it was just part of a broader strategy to secure economic growth from multiple areas.
Yep. And if you think about it, the tariffs on US commodities really did a number on American sectors that didn't have an alternative market ready to take off immediately, right?
Exactly, which is why the impact on US farm and energy sectors was particularly sharp. It reminds us that trade wars can often be a lose lose situation if not managed carefully.
Well, this discussion really flips the script on conventional wisdom about tariffs, doesn't it?
It sure does. It's a complex interplay of policy, market adaptation, and global trade dynamics. And it shows how what seems like a clear hit for one side can end up being more nuanced in reality.
Yeah. Thanks for walking through that. It's fascinating how these policies can lead to such unexpected results.
Absolutely. Keeping an open mind and looking deeper is key in understanding these global shifts. Glad we unpacked that together.